All right, so Bible open. Open to John 1 for now, I guess, and have your notes out. Okay. We're going to talk through some of what you guys did yesterday, and then use that as a springboard into some of the ideas that are important for John chapter 1 today. Connect some dots, lay out a basic Johannine understanding of Jesus. Okay. And then from there, segue into some other material that the gospel will set up for us. Okay. So we got notes, we got our Bibles out and ready to go. Yesterday, you played Connect the Dots. John 1, Proverbs 8, Genesis 1. Tell me how you connected the dots.
For connection between like John 1 and Genesis
1,
that the whole like God was a light, but then when the Word became flesh, it talks about how it spoke the universe into existence somewhere in John 1.
Okay. The Word is somehow responsible for creating things, because without him, nothing was made that has been made. Yeah? That's verse 3, John chapter 1. Good. Okay. Give me another one.
It starts with in the beginning.
Yes.
And it starts talking about how basically, God was there in the beginning. He created everything.
Yep.
All that.
Okay. Yeah. What else? Yes.
In John 1, it says, in the beginning, nothing was made but being. In Genesis 1, it says the earth was without form and void. And then in Proverbs 8, it talks about there being no depth and no mountains and a few other things without.
Things have yet to take their shape or their organization in Genesis chapter 1, right? So Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Boom, there it is. But then the rest of Genesis 1 is God organizing what he made, establishing boundaries and setting the depths of the oceans, the seas, and putting dry land and the mountains in place, right? It's organizing what's already there from verse 1. Yeah? Okay. What else? Go ahead.
I don't know. I forgot if it was in Proverbs 8.
Let's give it a shot.
When it talks about John coming down into the world from John 1 through 18, kind of references to Jesus in a way.
Okay. What else? Go ahead.
It talks about how God created light, and it refers to Jesus as the light.
Yeah. In him was life, and that life was the light of all humanity. I actually want to talk about that. So, in him, in this Jesus, there is life and light. Now, I'm key in on this light thing. I had you look at the first 5 verses of Genesis chapter 1, right? What does God make in those first 5 verses? And then specifically, light. Okay. So if we're following the Genesis timescale, on day 1, God makes what? And then he separates periods of light and less light for the day and the night. Yeah? What does he make on day 4? Oh, you're like, wait, I know this. I has questions. What do you make on day one? When does he make the sun?
Day 4.
Somebody explain that to me.
Yeah, let's talk about this with Mr.
Wait,
Jonas.
whoa.
Yeah, this
It says it
discussion for
in
like 3
John
times.
1,
And I wrote something
It says the
and
true
he
light
used it the entire year.
the true light which gives light to everyone was coming into the world.
Wait, hold on. But John's talking about what's happening with Jesus in John 1, verse 9. As his coming into the world, not necessarily this. But there's a parallel to it. What did God make on day 1?
Light.
What's the source of that? Where's the light bulb?
God.
Because this is what you have. Then God said, let there be,
No light.
and bing, there's light. But wait, there's not an object or objects to provide that light for day and night until day 4. There's light, but there's no sun, moon, or stars for 3 more days. Huh? What's providing the light? In a very basic way, you're absolutely right. Is this making sense?
Wait, hold up.
Go ahead.
Are you talking about like physical light or spiritual light? Or both?
Well, physical, because that's what Genesis 1 is talking about.
Okay.
But that's the conundrum. If there's light that marks daytime and nighttime, starting on day 1, but there's no sun and moon to mark day and night until day 4, what's doing it for days 1, 2, and 3?
Wait, that's how we told Jesus too. It's because of the sun and the moon.
That's the point. It goes back to your answer. God's providing it himself. Is this making sense? And then God's going to take what he's been providing himself and distill it into what we get in the sun, moon, the stars, and the planets. Yes? It's a valid question, isn't it? John 1 is picking up on this. Because John 1 is picking up on this idea that there's light without sun and moon and stars from day 1 through day 3. Right? Yeah? Some semblance of sense. Or am I just scrambling brains? A little bit of both? Are we awake? There's a lot of really confused expressions in the room.
That makes sense.
Okay. Well, let's carry on and see what more we
I
find.
think in Revelation it says something
What?
about Jesus being a light or something. I don't know.
What else? Revelation talks about the New Jerusalem has no need for the sun because God itself will be the light.
Yes.
Okay, what else did you connect? Okay, let's see what we can connect. You ready? Go to Proverbs chapter 8 for me. I need somebody to read 8:22. Really, you can stop at 31. But I just need somebody to do some reading. Go ahead.
The Lord brought me forth as the first of his words, before his deeds of old. I was formed long ages ago, at the very beginning, when the world came to be. When there was no watery depths, I was given birth. When there were no springs overflowing with water. Before the mountains were settled in place, before the hills, I was given birth. before he made the world or its fields, or any of the dust of the earth. I was there when he set the heavens in place, when he marked out the horizon on the face of the deep, when he established the clouds above, and fixed securely the fountains of the deep, when he gave the sea its bounty, so the waters would not overstep his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth. Then I was constantly at his side. I was filled with delight day after day, rejoicing always in his presence, rejoicing in his whole world, delighting in mankind.
Nice. What version is that?
I believe it's NIV.
Okay. Give the English Standard. Will you read verse 29 and 30 in the English Standard?
29 and 30.
Mm-hmm.
When he assigned to the sea its limit, so that the waters might not transgress his commands, when he marked out the foundation of the earth, and I was beside him like a master workman.
I was beside him like a master workman or a master craftsman. We need to talk about that idea. So we're going to come back to that verse. But I want to talk about this. Proverbs 8, 22 to 36. Who's talking?
Jesus.
Maybe. In the narrative flow of Proverbs, it's a character we call Lady Wisdom. I'm going to talk through this a bit and try and set the imaginative world, the theological imagination of the Hebrew mind, so that we understand a bit what's going on here. The book of Proverbs is a story of sorts, but it's a story that takes the shape of a series of advice columns given from a father to a son, right? My son, listen to my instruction and do not despise your mother's teaching. It's a repeated sort of couplet in the book of Proverbs, right? And so what you have is a father, who's the primary speaker of the book, talking to his son and giving him instruction. The basic gist of the instruction can be summed up in a sentence. Don't be an idiot, live like this. Right? Don't do dumb stuff, live like this. That's basically the book of Proverbs. Now, it takes on specific instructions for specific contexts. Like when you go to a dinner party, don't think you're all that. Sit somewhere at the table that's a humble estimation of yourself so that you're not humiliated when the host of the party says, you're sitting in the wrong chair, you need to move. Right? Part of the instruction, however, a significant portion of the instruction in the book of Proverbs is oriented around what the son will find or should find in the noble or virtuous wife. And one of the ways that gets set up is by a contrast in the first 9 chapters of the book of Proverbs between 2 ladies who are personifications. They're concepts or they're character traits that get personified into women the son can join himself to, and they have dramatically different results for his life. Yeah? One of them is Lady Folly. Okay? Lady Folly says, I've got great stuff and it's wonderful at my house. And then the father interjects an instruction and says, yes, but when you're there, you're going to end up dead. So don't do that. Right? It looks fantastic. She's going to kill you. Don't do that. On the other hand is Lady Wisdom. The final and sort of most glorious depiction of Lady Wisdom is Proverbs 31. The noble and virtuous wife, right? The journey of the son in the book of Proverbs goes from a young son to an adult preparing for his wedding, Proverbs 31. Is this making sense? And wisdom follows him from day 1 to the end of the storyline in Proverbs chapter 31. And so Lady Wisdom is the speaker in Proverbs chapter 8. This is the personified character of wisdom who's teaching something, who's explaining something about the truth, about the good, about the noble, about the upright, to the son in the storyline of the book of Proverbs. This is who's doing the talking. You with me here? Okay. And so Lady Wisdom says, before his acts of old, before creation itself was established, I was there with God. Not only I was there, but read me verse 30 again.
Then I was beside him like a master worker, and I was daily his delight, for those in the form always.
Okay. Master workman, master craftsman. I like the word craftsman here because it conveys the idea a little bit better. Yours says, Wisdom says, I was beside him, delighting in his created world, which is the rest of the verse as it carries on. Because the literal word is the word to be beside. However, this particular word in Hebrew for being beside someone is only ever used of a craftsman and their apprentice. That's it. So this is a particular technical use of the word that in the Hebrew scripture is only used for when a craftsman, master craftsman, is handing on their craft to an apprentice, to somebody else who's going to come along after them and do the same building and constructing and crafting as they have done. Yeah? Much like Joseph, the carpenter, would have handed on his skills as a craftsman to Jesus. Are you with me on this? Okay. That means then that Lady Wisdom in the book of Proverbs is what we call the agent of creation. It's a title. But if I'm playing into the personification here, okay? If wisdom is the craftsman and God is establishing the water's limits, the mountain designs, the pillars of the deep, and everything else, then that means in the theological imagination and understanding, when God speaks in Genesis chapter 1, wisdom comes alongside him and manufactures what he spoke. What does that sound like? That sounds like that logos concept. Hebrew theology shares it, but it's nuanced. It's not this thing that shows up when the God speaks and goes away when the God's not talking. It's there all the time. It's with God. It's celebrating with God. It's part of God. It's connected, which is why the language of Proverbs 8 is so important. Wisdom was established, was set forward, was brought forth, not created, not given birth. So here's what happens. God says, let there be light. And wisdom manufactures photons. Right? God says, let there be a greater and a lesser light. And wisdom takes those things and manufactures the sun and the moon and the stars. Let there be fish in the sea. Wisdom comes along and organizes the material like a craftsman, like an artisan. At God's command and with God's design. It's almost like God's laying out the blueprints with what he's talking through, and wisdom comes along and manufactures the thing itself. Like we talked about in the example yesterday, Zeus is setting the pillars and doing the architecture, and the Logos runs about doing all the hammering. That's the same concept in the Hebrew imagination in Proverbs chapter 8. Go ahead.
So, going back with that Logos idea, so does that mean like like Lady Wisdom doesn't necessarily exist until God speaks.
No, that's the biggest and probably the most stark difference between the Logos concept and the wisdom concept in the Hebrew Bible. Because in the Hebrew understanding of the Old Testament, wisdom's always there. Wisdom doesn't show up when God talks and disappear when God's not talking like the Logos does with Zeus. Wisdom, on the other hand, always was there, always is there, and always will be there. Yeah? John knows this. John understands this. This is the theological imagination of creation that John has grown up in. And so the Father spoke it and wisdom manufactured it. Now in John chapter 1, the Father spoke it, the Son manufactured it. The Son, in John's imagination, is this wisdom and this Logos together. Yeah? This wisdom and this wisdom from Proverbs 8, who was with God and is with God and will be with God, always was and always is and always will be. But this Logos concept, because he's here now among us, and he's taken something up in this new expression from the Father. That's this, but it's different. Because now there's this humanness to it. Yeah? This is where chapter 1, verse 14 becomes critically important. In John 1:14, this word, right? This wisdom, or this Logos, yeah, has done what? Well, let's just go back to it. 1:14. He became, or he took up flesh, right? And did what? Dwelt. Where? Among us. Not the game. See what I did there? Okay. Where did God dwell with his people? First Testament thing. Old Testament. Temple. Before it was a temple, it was a tent. What do we call the tent? Tabernacle. So here's the deal. John is saying, right, this word, this wisdom thing has now taken up flesh. It's become like us and becoming human. And so now we have this God who is the Word that's now human too. Fully God, fully human. And then he says, and he dwelt with us. But when he uses this word, he actually takes the noun for tabernacle and turns it into a verb. And he says, he tabernacled among us. John's evoking the imagery from those First Testament texts, from wandering in the wilderness. And then he goes on and he says, and we've seen his glory. The glory of the only Son from the Father. Hang on, what dwelt in the tabernacle? The glory of God on the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. This would distinguish the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle from anything else on earth, right? Oh. So here's what you have. John chapter 1, in the first 14 or 18 verses. Right now we're only at verse 14. You have this wisdom and Logos concept rolled into the person of Jesus Christ, which we still don't have a name for yet, by the way. That's not until verse 17. rolled into the person of Jesus Christ, who is the light and provides life and is the manufacturer, the creator of everything that exists. That is an incredibly dense package. There's a lot going on, and we're only 14 verses in to the Gospel of John. Where does he go from there? He goes to verse 18. Here's what he says in 18. No one has ever seen God. Only God at the Father's side has made him known. No one has ever seen God. And then in 18, he says, only God the Word at the Father's side has made him known. And that paradigm right there plays back into all of this. How do we know God's creation? How do we see it? Because something has made it known by actually making it. And so now this Word, who is the Son, is going to make known to us the Father. The Gospel of John is now going to bear that out. Why these stories? These stories, these signs, so that you might believe and have life in his name. Yeah? Well, what are you supposed to believe? This. That he is who he says he is. Right? Who does he say that he is? That's where we're headed next. Who is this Jesus? Great. He's wisdom. He's this Logos. Who is he? What is he about? Why does it matter? What does he do? What's his relationship like with the Father? Is it different than this Logos thing? Is it the same? What's going on with it? Let's talk about it. And now John's going to start to unpack it. Okay? And one of the primary places that he's going to do that, and one of the most overlooked places he's going to do that in the Gospel of John, is chapter 5. Okay? So here's what we are going to do. We are going to go to John chapter 5, for those of you that stay in here, and I want you to read it and take notes. Okay? If you don't have a chance to do it while you're in here today, try and get to reading John 5 sometime between now and Tuesday. Okay? All right. See you guys.